Hey guys, Darren Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing another exciting podcast. Tonight we have another winner from last year. We have Mr. Ryan McCarthy. He won the Major League Fishing BFL Shenandoah Division tournament on Lake Kerr. So we're going to talk to him about his win last year, kind of pick his brain a little bit, and then what he predicts for this year's tournament. Very excited to have another BFL angler on our podcast. Make sure if you haven't already to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Revital Outdoors. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. We just hit 300 subscribers, and I know that doesn't sound like a whole bunch, but we did that in less than 2 months of starting this podcast, so very excited for that. Thank you to everyone that's subscribed. If you haven't already, check us out on our social media platform. That's going to be Revital Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. And if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, we're a premium CBD company for outdoor enthusiasts. We have a full lineup of products. All of our products are THC-free, made right here in America, and great for hunting and fishing enthusiasts alike. So check out our website. And then also you can apply for our pro staff positions there. We are accepting pro staff daily. So that being said, very excited for this podcast. Let's just go ahead and bring him right in. So Mr. Ryan McCarthy, how you doing this evening, bud?
Good. How you doing, Darren?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for taking time to come on with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Absolutely. So let's just get right into it. First of all, you've accomplished something last year that not many anglers get that opportunity to do, and that's to win a BFL tournament. I feel like, just my opinion, I'm going to throw it out there. The BFL tournaments are probably some of the hardest tournaments to try to win because all the local hammers fish those lakes year after year, and you were able to walk away with it last year on Lake Kerr. So congratulations, and tell us about it a little bit.
Thank you. So I was fishing. I had planned to fish the entire Shenandoah BFL division with one goal in mind. That goal was to make it to the regional down on Lake Murray, South Carolina. So Kerr was the first stop of the tournament trail. I am very familiar with Smith Mountain Lake, as well as the Potomac was on there and the James River. I live only about 45 minutes from the Potomac River. That's what I would consider my home water.
All great fisheries.
It's amazing. But the Potomac River doesn't fish like many other fisheries in this area. It fishes somewhat like the James in certain situations, certain times of the year. But other than that, it's totally different. So I also fished the Virginia Elite 70, which is a pretty high level competition, local Virginia tournament trail. And so one of my buddies on that tournament trail was, helping me, point me in the right direction as to what I should be looking for when I head down to Kerr. Due to my work schedule, I was only given 1 day of practice to pre-fish the day before. So it was kind of a catch-22. Do you go and catch a bunch of fish and stick a bunch of fish the day before, or just look for them and hope for the best? Me not being very familiar with Kerr, even though I live only 3 hours from there, I went down there to try to develop a pattern as efficiently as possible. So I went down the day before and put in at Nutbush super early, right about as first light hit. So my goal was to cover a lot of water in the day, to try to cover from one end of the lake to the other, and just to develop some kind of game plan. So I am a power fisherman, but I like super shallow water. I'm comfortable when my trolling motor is kicking up mud. Muddy water doesn't scare me. Deep, clear water scares me. And I haven't fished enough of it in my career to understand how they act differently than all these shallow water fish that live in the shallow water year round. So I had just had Active Target installed on my boat. So I had been out playing with it on Lake Anna here in Virginia to dial it in a little bit. So I was able to understand what the concept of it was and how fish behaved around different structure or around bait and so forth. So immediately that morning, when I put the boat in, just rode up to the first creek that looked good, and I put the trolling motor down and we went to fishing. So it was the end of March. The water temperature was in the low 50s, like right at, in the morning time was right at 50 to 53 in the afternoon in some places in the backs of the coves. So I instantly knew that it was going to be that pre-spawn kind of deal. And so when we started the morning, I had found some laydowns up on the bank, and my buddy actually picked up a rattle trap, and it was a Bill Lewis, just your standard red Bill Lewis half ounce rattle trap.
I was just fixing to say, like 53, 54. That's when a lot of anglers, that's what I've been taught. You got to get up on the bank and you've got to rip a lipless.
So
that's crazy. Yeah.
Man, it wasn't his second cast, and he casted up what I thought was into the tree, and his line was over the tree. However, immediately once his bait fell out of sight, it was only in about a foot of water. His line started walking out of this tree. And so unbeknownst to him, there was a fish on it on the other end. When he went to set hook, his drag had been super loose from being stored over the wintertime. So he never got a good hook into it. The fish took him from one brush pile to another about 30 yards away. And we actually went all the way up to the tree, went into the bush to hand lip it, and we caught it. And so I handed him the fish to unhook it. And he immediately looked at me and said, "Hey, look, the inside lip of this fish, the inside of his lip was completely red and almost like bloody." And right then he said, "Look, there's a clay bank there, and you can see the holes in the bank from where the crawdads are coming out of the bank." So I, in turn, then immediately picked up my jackhammer, my fire crawl jackhammer, 3/8 ounce, and we started going down the same bank. So he continued throwing his rattle trap. I picked up the jackhammer, and we just went around that creek. Well, probably within 10 minutes, we had 4 other fish between a rattle trap and the fire crawl jackhammer. So that really piqued my curiosity. So we left that area pretty quickly thereafter and started going to try to pattern that in other areas. We had caught some fish doing that, and it was pretty overcast that morning. By lunchtime, it became bluebird skies. Started heating up, and we ended up making it all the way up to Eastland Creek. The water was super, super muddy, and it was the first time I had ever been that far up on Kerr. So we wasted a lot of time up there that I just didn't know. So I wanted to explore, I wanted to rule everything out. So at about lunchtime, we decided, hey, we're going to go back down lake, and we're going to figure out this pattern with this crawdad these red fire crawl baits and see what that has to deal. So I came back down lake and noticed the water temperature had gotten up to about 53 degrees, and something told me to pick up a jig. And so I picked up, this is probably the most tried and true jig that I will throw. I'm not sponsored by them. I throw these almost everywhere I go, to include Smith Mountain Lake, but it's a Missile Bakes Ike mini flip, half ounce.
Yeah, let me take a look at that. Here we go.
So it's a half ounce Ike's mini flip. It's got a smaller profile ball head, and I've tested a lot of different trailers. The one I like the best is this Bass Pro Shops Elite Chunk. They come in like a 6-pack. You can get them at Cabela's or Bass Pro. They're the Bass Pro model, and for some reason I like the action of these crawls a little bit better than most other trailers. This hook, this bait being a finesse flipping jig, has a smaller hook, if you can see. So trying to get a bait to fit correctly on this hook is hard, but this Bass Pro Shop chunk fits perfectly up the shank of that hook, and then you can see it comes out right here where the claws start. So it's
that's perfect. That just looks sexy.
Like profile. And so I started using this jig way back when I started fishing Smith Mountain Lake, and I went to Radford University, which is in Southern Virginia. If you haven't heard of it, it's right outside, about 20 minutes outside of Virginia Tech. So when I was in Radford in 2008 as a freshman, myself and several other buddies, we started a bass fishing club at Radford. So we did some tournament trails, and we actually got into the first edition of the FLW College Series, which that has totally changed probably 10 times since I fished that series. But the way it was is They did a couple tournaments, and the top 25 boats at each one went to a regional. And so back to college fishing. When we went to Smith Mountain Lake, and an older gentleman once told me at the boat ramp, "Hey, I see you got a bunch of jigs tied on." He said, "When the bite gets tough here at Smith Mountain Lake, you got to go to a small finesse jig." So I immediately started throwing these missile baits, mini flips. And to this day, I still am a firm believer, and I will pick up a finesse flipping jig over a full-size jig any day. If I have to pick up a jig, since I'm a power fisherman, I'm going for bites. And this thing is just a bite getter. It gets the bites. And I don't know if I think it's more so just the compact size of it. But I can also get it into pretty tight places, skipping it under docks. It comes through wood cover really well. So back on Kerr, I pulled up in a cove, not far from where we were fishing that morning, and I picked up this jig. And it was just green pumpkin jig and green pumpkin trailer. And I decided I didn't have any red dye, so I dyed the claws of it orange, just the tips of them. Well, I pitched my jig into the first brush pile I saw, or the first laydown I saw coming off the bank, and it was in about 8 foot of water. As soon as I flipped it out to the end of it, my jig started walking off. And my buddy gives me a hard time. I tried shaking it off for about a minute and a half, and the fish just kept taking it out to deeper water. And so I looked at him and I said, "You know what? Let's see what kind of quality it is." I set hook into him, and he was right at like 2.5 pounds. I think 249 to be exact on my Rapala scale. So at that point in time, it was probably like 1:30 in the afternoon. We were going to spend the night there, so we wanted to find our place. So I said, "Hey, look, I want an hour left in the day to go run around to every cove within this vicinity of Nutbush, and I'm going to mark every brush pile or every laydown that comes off the bank into some substantial 3 to 4 foot of water." So I put my boat up on pad, and I ran to every creek and idled every creek and just put a waypoint on my GPS of every brush pile. We didn't fish anymore that day, just marked every brush pile that came out into the water. So come tournament day, I stopped. I was boat like 91 of 103, and my creek was like the third creek on the left coming out of Nutbush. So my mind was, man, I'm gonna have to formulate another game plan, or I'm gonna have to go to some of these backup brush piles, and I'm just gonna fish wood all day. So turns out I boat 91, I launched, I went to the creek, and as soon as I pulled up to the corner, the brush pile was right there on the left. I had pulled up there. I stopped about 50 yards shy, and I had seen another boat was already back into the creek a little bit further. I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming they had already fished that brush pile. But I think what they were doing was fishing the bank around it. They weren't actually fishing the wood cover. So I pulled up onto it. I flipped right on the same spot that I flipped the day before, and I caught the exact same fish that I did in practice.
Wow.
He weighed the exact same. I actually had a picture of him from the day before in pre-fish, and all the same markings, 100% the same fish in my eyes. So that was just like luck, you know? And so I caught that one. That was the only brush pile in that cove. So then I went to the next cove up, which was where we started the day before, where we caught the rattle trap and the chatterbait. So I had only made it probably an eighth of the way through that creek on the first day. So I started off where I started in the practice. First laydown that I flipped up into there, I caught a 3-pounder. So within the first 10 minutes of fishing, I had 2 for about 5.5 pounds. I went around the corner, and this was just past where I stopped the day before in practice. And I'm scanning the bank, and I had caught him up shallow in this little bay the day before, but it just didn't seem right. I didn't see any bait activity up there. So I started going out into the little deeper water, and I just something happened. And I looked down at my active target on my Lowrance 12, and I had seen a stump sitting out in about 6 foot of water off the bank. And I flipped my jig right out to that stump and never saw a fish on the active target. I just flipped out to it. And the bite was super weird that day. You never felt the bite. It was just they picked it up and your bait just started walking off. So immediately I set hook into him, and that was a 4-pounder. So wow. I right then and there, that was my day. My day is going to live or die by a jig fishing wood. So I continued in that creek. I ended up getting a fourth fish for about 2.5 pounds. So I was somewhere like right around 11. About 9:30, I went on a lull, and I didn't catch another fish until I think about 12:30. My co-angler picked up a couple. He had 4 fish. I had 4 fish. So about 12:30, it was, hey, this is where all those waypoints that I marked the day before are going to come into play. So I just started running and gunning. I ran to every mark I made 4 or 5 flips to it, ran to the next one. About the fifth one I ran to, I caught my 5th fish, was about a 3-pounder. So it took me probably up to about 14 to 14.5 pounds. A couple brush piles later, I upgraded a 2.5 to about a 3-pounder. So that brought me up a little bit more. And so I had about an hour left, and I said, you know what? I want to make one more pass through that good creek where I caught the 4-pounder this morning. I had good fish in practice. I went through there. There was a boat actually sitting right in the general vicinity of where I caught that 4-pounder. So I actually went just a little bit past him, started fishing. I fished that creek all the way to the very back until my trolling motor was getting stuck in the mud. I turned around and I came out. I had about 10 minutes left till I had to be back in Nutbush. I knew my run was only about 4 minutes. Had about 10 minutes to get back to Nutbush, and I pulled up to that magical stump in about 6 foot of water, and there was another 4-pounder on it. I flipped up there. I let my bait soak. I started slow reeling. That was the trick of the day. Is you couldn't. I couldn't get bit if I was hopping my jig. I was literally just pointing my rod right where my bait was in the water and just slow reeling it, making sure it was making contact with every limb, every rock, every piece of cover that was under the water. And that was the key for me, is just not moving that bait, just slowly dragging it and just milking it in all of that cover. And so I caught that last, he was 415, and it upgraded me to what my scale said was like 1680. And so I was like, man, that's I'm sitting decent. Again, this was a survival tournament for me in the Shenandoah. All I wanted was just good points. I knew I was going to Smith Mountain Lake. I knew I was coming back to the Potomac. I knew I was going to the James, where I would have my shot at actually a win, or a couple good checks. So I quickly culled my smallest fish out. I think it was like 2.5. So a 2.5 for a 5-pounder was a huge upgrade for me. And so the funny thing about it is I kept telling my co-angler, I said, man, I want to get you one fish. He was somewhere around 9.5 pounds. So I want to get you one more fish, and you could win this thing. And he looked right at me like 20 minutes ago. He said, dude, 1 4-pounder and you're going to win this thing. And I said, man, I don't know. There's some sticks out here. And it's that time of the year where somebody's going to crack a 20 to 22 pound bag out fishing out deep. That's just not my style of fishing. That's not my game. I have learned to live and die by the John Cox motto. I'm going to fish the way I want to fish, and if I don't catch them that way, then I don't catch them that way. But I'm not going to do something that I'm not comfortable with and go out and throw a drop shot in 60 foot of water to try to catch some schooling fish. It's just that's not something I like to do. And I fish much better when I fish my strengths fishing shallow. So I got back to the weigh-in, and my tournament partner, he actually had my keys. He backed my truck down that morning. So when I called him, I said, hey, I need my truck down here. He said, all right, did you catch him? And I said, man, I got about 16 and 3/4 pounds. He said, dude, you're going to win this thing. And I said, no, that's not, I'm like the second to last flight. Somebody's going to crack him, late in the day. He said, dude, like 12 pounds is leading as of now. So it was such a crazy day, magical day. When it's your day, it's your day. And you don't know that, but by the grace of God and good fishing and fishing clean that day, I was able to get the win. I got my jig hung in probably 20 brush piles. I tried breaking it off 15 or 16 different times, and it wouldn't break off. And I had a bent hook. I bent the hook back several times, and I used the same jig all day.
Wow. That's crazy. Let's take a look at those baits again, like the ones you caught them in pre-fish, and then let's take a look at that jig again.
All right. So this is the just a Bill Lewis rattle trap, 1/2 ounce. And this is I think everybody has this in their box when it comes to springtime. I probably got 15 or 20 of them now in my box.
There's been more of those color rattle traps sold than anything else lipless bait wise in the country.
Yeah.
That's just
And I like the Bill Lewis. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. I like the aggressive rattle that they have. I also use the Strike King Red Eye Shads. They're also a phenomenal bait, especially for their price. You can find them a lot of times, at the end of the season on clearance, and I'll go in and I'll pick up 20 of them, and they're just amazing baits. I like to cast my rattle traps in pretty treacherous areas, and you oftentimes lose them. So having enough of them help. The second was fire crawl jackhammer. This time of year, I don't go anywhere without it. I normally have at least one, maybe two tied on. I'm really excited to try the new big blade. Again, I'm not sponsored by Z-Man. Like Gerald Swindle says, I own a box of probably $2,000 worth of them, and I throw them everywhere. A chatterbait's a go-to bait for me year round. The only thing that changes is the color.
Right.
These shad or heron lakes, I'll go with a whiter clear color. On the river, I like to throw a green pumpkin, a black and blue. There's another color that I can't give out. Z-Man makes it, but if I give out all the details, my buddies will be listening and they'll go buy them. So.
Right. So, well, Ryan, I know you got a lot of people that support you. I checked out your profile on Major League Fishing and looking at your Facebook. You've had a phenomenal career. You've done really well for yourself. I know you got a lot of people that support you. So we just want to give you the chance to thank all your friends, your family, your traveling buddies, your sponsors, anybody like that before we get off here.
Yeah. First and foremost, my wife. My wife is the biggest team player. She affords me the opportunity. I have 3 little ones at home. She affords me the opportunity to travel around God's creation and fish these amazing, beautiful lakes and have the time to do so, and is super supportive. So without my wife, I couldn't do this journey. Second, Luz and Strike King. I can't thank them enough. The rods are amazing. I own way too many of them probably, but my Luz rods, they're the most sensitive rod that I've ever fished with. I love them. Great action. I like to use a little bit lighter rods for most different applications, and Luz makes a extremely light rod. I love them. Strike King, the Thunder Cricket, the Hybrid Hunter. I don't know how many people. I don't hear a lot of people throwing the Hybrid Hunter, but I'll tell you this: don't sleep on it. That is a fish catching bait, and the same as this flipping jig. When the bite gets tough and you're around grass or you're around cover, that Hybrid Hunter will draw them in, and it's a fish catcher. Phoenix boats. My Phoenix boat is amazing. I absolutely love it. I run an 819 with a 200. I just recently, so last year I upgraded to a Ghost trolling motor. That Ghost trolling motor is by far the best in the industry. And my active target, I think, is second to none. I just upgraded to a Humminbird 360. I'm super excited. That would have tremendously helped me at Kerr to find all these brush piles out in the water. So I'm super excited about that. Some of my buddies, my tournament partner, I travel with him. I got some close buddies here at the house. We do a lot of talking, a lot of sharing information together to help work together. But yeah, there's some. I got an amazing support system behind me, and great group of friends. who helped me work on my boat, helped me stay on the water, and helped teach me some things here and there. I've come a long way since I graduated Radford and I started tournament fishing. This is only my real second full year of competing in tournaments. Last year was my first. I competed a couple years as a co-angler, but as a boater, this is going to be my second year. So I've come a long way, I think, in that time frame. And man, I can't wait to do some more. Looking forward to fishing the Toyota series that comes to the Potomac River this year. So if your listeners are out there going to fish it, hit me up. I'll be out there, and I can't wait to get back to fishing with MLF. Their tournaments they're top notch. They're well run from the front office staff. I've talked to so many people in the front office staff. They're super helpful to the tournament day of, to their tournament directors. It's a great organization, and it's a blessing to fish with them.
Absolutely. So, well, Ryan, thank you for joining us on our podcast. Good luck this year. And, man, we hope to have you back on our podcast for Revital Outdoors, because that means you repeated your success on Kerr Lake with the Shenandoah division.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And for anybody out there, you can find me at Ryan McCarthy Fishing, both Instagram and Facebook. I'd love to see you out there, and hope to get you some more content here in the near future.
Absolutely. So, well, Ryan, good luck to you in your future endeavors in your tournament season. And from all of us at Revital Outdoors, I'm Theron Asbury. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. Again, we've been talking to Mr. Ryan McCarthy. He won the Kerr Lake BFL tournament last year in the Shenandoah division. So we want to thank Ryan for taking the time to come on here. Before we get off here, just a reminder, please subscribe to our YouTube page. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. God bless. Be safe out there, and we will talk to everyone on the next podcast.